Thank y'all so much for being here. I'm Senator Holly Thompson Rehder from Southeast Missouri, and today I'm so excited that we are here to talk about our bill. Senator Lauren Arthur and Representative Chris Dinkins' bill. The three of us have filed bills for ending child marriage in our state. And we're so blessed to have some folks who are working on this actually across the nation. And then a child marriage survivor herself here to speak with us today. So Senator Arthur has some comments, and we're going to start with her. So thank y'all so much.
Well, good morning. I'm so honored to stand here with these women and discuss this really important issue. Raising the marriage age to 18 is imperative for the health and welfare of children, particularly girls in Missouri. Child marriage puts children at risk of social isolation, mental and physical health issues, intimate partner abuse, and poverty. Under Missouri current law, a child under 18 can legally marry with parental consent. Missouri ranks 16th when it comes to child marriage per capita. And between 2000 and 2018, nearly 300,000 children under the age of 18 were legally married in the U.S. Most of the children were young girls wed to adult men. Even without these risks that are posed to children, clear and simple, child marriage is the legalization of child rape. If a 27-year-old man were to have sex with a 16-year-old girl, that's considered statutory rape. Just because one parent gives permission for that child to be married doesn't make it any less unconscionable. So raising the marriage age to 18, it's not just legislative action, it's a moral imperative. And I am so hopeful working with this group that we're going to be able to get it done in Missouri. Thank you.
Representative Dinkins.
Thank you. I echo Senator Arthur's sentiments regarding child marriage. My sister was married at age 15, and I also had a close friend who was married at age 15, and they both were abused, and drugs were in the mix with young family babies. And I'm honored to be able to represent the senators on the House side by carrying this piece of legislation that is going to protect our young children.
And you guys know I got married at 15 to my 21-year-old boyfriend. And so it's very personal for me to make this a step for women, for girls, in the direction that gives them more prosperity long term and gives them more success in family, in life, and in their careers. My sister at 16 married her 39-year-old drug dealer. These are the things that are happening in the communities that I was raised in Missouri. So it's with these stories that I'm so happy to recognize our friend that has come in that's helping with this across the nation, Fraidy Reiss, founder and executive director of Unchained at Last.
Thank you.
It is time to end child marriage in Missouri because, yes, girls matter. So as you heard, I am Fraidy Reiss. I am a forced marriage survivor myself. I was forced as a teen to marry a stranger who turned out to be violent. And I was trapped for 15 years in this abusive marriage, during which time I was forced to have unprotected sex with my husband, forced to have 2 children without my consent. And when I finally managed to escape, my family retaliated by shunning me. They consider me dead. And that's why I founded Unchained at Last, to end forced and child marriage across the United States, including here in Missouri, through direct services and systems change. And that's why I'm so grateful to Senator Rehder and Senator Arthur and Representative Dinkins for introducing this important legislation to end child marriage in Missouri. Here's a fact. Right now, one parent can enter a 16 or a 17-year-old into marriage with nothing more than a notarized signature. There is no input required from the teen, and there is no recourse for a teen who does not want to marry. We have worked with girls who showed up sobbing at the clerk's office begging for help. Nothing the clerk can do, nothing the girl can do. That marriage is happening if the parent signs the form. And let's be very clear, when someone is forced to marry, their own parent almost always plays a crucial role in facilitating that forced marriage. That is unacceptable, the current law that we have now. And here's the fact. This loophole became the law in 2018. Prior to that, a parent could enter a child of any age into marriage here in Missouri. So the 2018 law change was a very good first step in the right direction. But here is why it did not go far enough. First of all, 88% of the minors who were entered into marriage in Missouri before that 2018 law change were age 16 or 17, 88%. That means the 2018 law change failed to protect 88% of the people it was intended to protect. And we know that child marriage has continued to happen at an alarming rate here in Missouri since that 2018 law change. Just between 2019 and 2021, 231 minors were entered into marriage right here in Missouri under the new law. Almost all of them, like before, were girls wed to adult men. That is unacceptable. Our girls matter. Now, here's another really important fact. Child marriage at age 16 or 17, even for the most mature teen, creates a nightmarish legal trap because you just don't have the rights of adulthood when you're 16 or 17. You're not allowed to leave home, to escape from parents planning an unwanted wedding for you, or to escape from an abusive spouse. You are a missing child if you run away from home, and that all hell breaks loose if you run away from home before you're 18. You cannot get into a domestic violence shelter without your parents' consent before you're 18. An adult in this terrifying situation might try to retain an attorney to help them figure out their options. A minor at age 16 or 17 cannot do that. A minor is incompetent to contract. They cannot enter that retainer agreement. And then perhaps most mind-bogglingly, a minor is not allowed to bring a legal action in their own name. They're not even allowed to file for divorce. So imagine as a 16 or 17-year-old, your parent can drag you into the clerk's office, marry you off against your will, and then you have to wait until 18 to file for divorce. That is unacceptable. And here's another fact. Marriage before 18 produces such devastating lifelong repercussions, destroying almost every aspect of a girl's life, her health, her education, her economic opportunities, her physical safety, that the U.S. State Department calls marriage before 18 a human rights abuse. And this human rights abuse is legal here in Missouri. The state is complicit in this. That is unacceptable. Now, here's another fact. There is a simple legislative solution. We can keep the marriage age at 18, but eliminate that dangerous loophole that allows a parent to enter a child into marriage at 16 or 17 before they're even old enough to file for divorce. It is legislation, that's the legislation that the senators and the representative here today have introduced. It is legislation that costs nothing. It harms no one, and it ends a human rights abuse. So I call on the legislature today to pass this legislation immediately. States across the U.S. and countries around the world are doing the same thing. In just the last few years, 11 U.S. states have made the marriage age 18, no exceptions. And Missouri is being left behind. It is time to do it here because girls matter. Thank you.
Ruthi Sturdevant with our Zonta Club, our Zonta Area 2 Director, will speak next. Thank you.
Zonta has clubs all over the world, and our number one goal is to build a better world for women and girls. And one of the most important goals that Zonta has had for many years is end child marriage everywhere. So I can tell, as I was telling Senator Rehder a while ago, all of the women who belong to District 7, my district, are very excited about this bill in the state of Missouri and are 100% supporting this because, as we've just heard, this is really important everywhere and especially even right here in Jefferson City.
And it was the Zontas who brought this bill to me back in the fall and late summer and asked if I would consider carrying this. They knew my story. And then at that point, after we filed it, is when we also had Unchained at Last reach out. The Zontas had connected me with Fraidy, and so it's been really a great group of women who have worked together across the board to make this a reality. So Michele Hanash, Director of Policy and Women's Programming at AHA Foundation, will be our next speaker.
Good morning. I am Michele Hanash, Director of Policy and Women's Programs at the AHA Foundation. We are a nonprofit working to end harmful practices like child marriage. We also receive those heartbreaking help requests from those fleeing child marriage in the U.S., including from minors. So first, I would like to thank Senators Rehder and Arthur and Representative Dinkins for introducing this important legislation to end child marriage. And I would like to thank you for being the champions that every girl who was entered into marriage in Missouri deserved to have. I'm honored to stand here today with our fierce allies, Unchained at Last and Zonta, and child marriage survivors to fight for this important education and end of exploitation and abuse of minors, overwhelmingly girls here in Missouri. We are here as champions of personal freedom and protection of fundamental rights. It is not okay to marry minors off. Child marriage can easily be forced due to minors' limited legal rights, as you heard, and it can lead to profound, devastating, and lifelong consequences, especially for girls. So why on earth is child marriage still legal here in Missouri? Why do we continue to put minors at risk of unrelenting physical, emotional, and sexual abuse? And why do we trap them there? Why would we continue to destroy girls' childhood, their education, and their economic opportunities, their very futures? The girls of Missouri, all children of Missouri, deserve better. And the good news is that we can end child marriage here in Missouri thanks to our legislative sponsors. And we can stand with them for what is right, and we can demand that all legislators stand with us to end child marriage. The government has no business in the child marriage business. 18, no exceptions. Thank you.
So our last speaker is Rebecca Hurst, and she's a child marriage survivor. And I appreciate her coming and being willing to tell her story for you all. Thank you.
My family attended a church in a small town here in Missouri. My mom would occasionally sing duets with a man that would become my husband. He was 22 years old. He was in the Army. And stationed at a base close to my hometown. On my 16th birthday, my mom invited him to our house for my birthday celebration. He brought me a gift and charmed my family. He completely love-bombed me and my mom. My mom told him he should take me on a date, and he agreed. We went on a date, and then he was discharged from the Army after his duty was over and returned to his hometown in Washington State. A few weeks later, he proposed marriage over the phone. He said that he wasn't going to wait for me to turn 18, and it was over now or it was going to happen now or never. I told my mom about it, and she encouraged me to accept the proposal. I later found out that she had planned the whole thing with him. She had written him a letter asking him to marry me and save me from my damnation. She did not feel I was on the correct spiritual path. We got married and immediately moved to Washington State, where I had no friends, family, or any kind of support. I enrolled in high school in a tiny town where we resided. The school officials made it clear that they did not want me there. They thought I was a bad influence on the other girls because I was married. My husband would not attend functions with me, including prom, because he said it was embarrassing to be a grown man at a high school event. He forced me to withdraw from school after my junior year. Instead of walking forward with my senior class to graduate, I took my GED exam and received a high school equivalency diploma. My husband was extremely controlling and emotionally, financially, spiritually, medically abusive throughout our marriage. He would quote Bible verses out of context, twisting scripture and using it as a weapon against me. According to his interpretation of the Bible, my body belonged to him, not me. He would force himself on me even after childbirth and surgeries against medical advice of my physicians. If I tried to tell him no, or that it hurt too badly, he would tell me I was out of line with the Word of God. I was not allowed to leave the house after dark unless he was with me because he believed the only reason women went out after dark was to look for men. I could not buy my own groceries, food, or any household items without consequences. I was denied medical and dental care. He controlled my food, my wardrobe, my hair, and my body. My first child was born when I was 17. About a year later, we moved to Kentucky to be closer to my family. My mother began to see firsthand how badly I was treated. I believe she regretted arranging the marriage, but her pride was too great for her to apologize. After 12 hellish years of marriage, I decided I did not want this modeled and normalized for my children. I did not want them to repeat the pattern in their own lives. I enrolled in college and told my husband I wanted a divorce. It was a very difficult decision because uncertainty regarding the future of my young children and my financial situation. My parents helped financially, but I was left to navigate the divorce and its aftermath on my own with no emotional support. I was determined to make it work for the sake of my children. I needed to stand in the gap and teach them boundaries so that they would not be bullied by their father or anyone else the way I was. It has been a long and difficult road. However, each time I fell, I got back up. My divorce has been final for over 20 years. I've experienced more healing and freedom than I thought possible, and am happier and more satisfied with who I am ever before. My children are strong and principled adults with a disposition towards grace and justice. I was a child having to make adult decisions. I had no one advocating for me or my right to stay a child. Parents cannot always be trusted to make the best decisions for their child. Letting a child marry is certainly not a good potential parental decision. I'm here to advocate for those that have no one to stand up for them and no one to fight for them. Keep marriage between two consenting adults. Thank you.
We are all available for questions at this time.
What reason would motivate a parent to want to see their child married off, typically?
Well, if I may, unfortunately, the way the laws are written, we've created a perverse and powerful incentive within the law itself. Once a child is married, they might be emancipated. I say might because this is not set by statute and there's confusing and contradictory case law on this. But if they are, that terminates a parent's financial obligation to their child. So what we have seen is one reason parents do this is to get out of a child support obligation or a child custody battle because that kid is emancipated, there go your problems. We also have seen immigration as a big reason that parents will do this, so that the child can petition for somebody, the girl can petition for an adult man overseas to get his spousal or fiancé visa and a path to citizenship. Girls are being trafficked for their U.S. citizenship.
How common is religious motivation? I'm just speaking about the story we just heard.
Well, the data we have they don't list the motivation. So we just know anecdotally at Unchained at Last, we're direct service providers. So some of these girls reach out to us for help. And what we know is that there is no major religion that requires child marriage. Sometimes parents will use it as an excuse. But in fact, as we're going across the United States, every major religion, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim faith leaders have stood with us and have supported making it 18, no exceptions.
And I would like to add, when it came to my mother, who, two of her daughters, at 16, my sister, and at 15, she signed for me to get married, she struggled with mental illness. And it was, we just had a very difficult life. She had a very difficult time raising teenage daughters. And I had started making the decisions in the home probably at about 11. My sister had already ran away so many times that she wasn't even living with us at 16 when my mother signed the papers for her to marry her drug dealer. So it was really where with my mother, she didn't have, I really don't think she had the wherewithal because she was mentally not capable of managing the situation that she was around. Now, I know that in the communities that I grew up in, teenage marriage was very normal. Many of my friends got married as teens, and so it wasn't, we didn't understand, we were very poor. We were in the trailer parks projects. We didn't understand that our long-term prosperity absolutely was going to be hindered, roadblocked because of these decisions. We were making decisions for ourselves as teenagers.
Just to clarify the bill, and this is for either senator, it raises the age to 18 regardless of parental consent, or it's just 18 period?
18, no exceptions. And in Missouri, you have to be 18 to sign a contract, a legal binding contract. And so absolutely marriage should be a part of that. And that's what we've done, is we've just said 18, no exceptions, once you're an adult.
Representative Dinkins, can you speak a little bit more about what role, if you're comfortable, what role your parents played in your marriage?
It was my sister's, not mine.
Your sisters.
Yes, okay. Back in the days, it wasn't really acceptable when a teen was pregnant, so they often, got married. It was just a way of life back then. And so as far as my sister and my close friend, they were both pregnant, and so the parents, that was just what you did. They got married, and both of them ended up in abusive relationships with drugs, and the marriage didn't last very long, but both of them had supportive families that they were able to come back home to. But many children do not have that home life that they can come back to, and then they are just left to deal with it.
Senator, your bill is on the perfection calendar. Have you been told when to expect debate? Can you actually go to the podium?
Sure. I have not. Senator Arthur, have you? We wanted to, with spring break coming up, we wanted to get the education bill. That's certainly been leadership's #1 priority. So we knew that was going to come up before our bill, and with us just getting it done last night at 8 o'clock, I honestly anticipate us, Senator Arthur and I, getting to bring this up probably at any time.
I'll also add, Senator Thompson Rehder has been pretty respectful about not offering this as an amendment to derail certain other pieces of legislation, but I think we are going to look for other vehicles as we get later into session. This is definitely an important topic, one worth debating, and hopefully we'll be successful in adding it if this bill doesn't make it across the finish line.
A couple of questions about the numbers. I think she said either 231 or 321. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, it was 231 minors who were married between 2019 and 2021, and that was after the 2018 law went into effect in August. And that is from the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services.
And you said 80+% of them are between the ages of 16 and 17?
No, well now, since 2019, they're all age 16 or 17 because marriage before that age is no longer legal. Before that time, from 2018 prior going back to 2000, it was 88% of them were age 16 or 17.
Do the DHSS numbers show gender in the marriage?
Yes, so that's how we know that most of them are girls married to adult men. I believe it was 78% were girls married to adult men.
Question for the senators. A few hundred. You know how these people think, you know how they work. Is that enough to get them excited and interested to move this bill this year?
That's why we have y'all here.
Seriously though.
I'm being serious. I think that it is, but we need public pressure. Women's issues have not always been first and foremost in any legislature across the nation. And so it is times like these that we bring in the media, and we want our constituents, we want Missourians to know what the laws are and to know how many women how many girls have been affected by this. And we know that with reading these stories, with seeing this press conference, they will reach out to their representatives and senators and put pressure on them to say, hey, help with this bill. This makes sense.
I'll also add, the one story we heard this morning is compelling enough for me to believe that legislative action is necessary to save any other future girls from having to endure that trauma.
Beyond getting on the floor, in the first place, is there any concerns about objection to this from some senators that might push back? Like, any thoughts on that?
I think that we can handle whatever objections come. I don't know that there are any. No one has come up to me thus far this year, said anything about being opposed to it. It came out of committee 100%. And so I feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to debate this in a short amount of time and get it out of the chamber.
Representative
And
Dinkins,
based
is
on
the-
what you said with the dynamics of the legislature, we do feel like it's important that it comes out clean, just so that there isn't any other reason for anybody not to support it.
Do you think the environment in the House is more favorable to this bill than it is in this chamber?
Absolutely.
Would anybody support any kind of, if it's offered, a religious exemption to this?
No.
I have two questions. First off, why is this bipartisan? Why are you two ladies on opposite sides of the aisle standing up here together?
This is an important issue for women, for from our history to our future. And things were so different 50 years ago, you know, when our grandmothers were marrying at 14 or 15, and the debates that have happened in this state house in past years. Women have so much more opportunity now, so much more opportunity for education, for prosperity. We do not need to hamstring our girls. And it takes women across the aisle to fight for this. And so that is why we've joined together to do this. And as I said about committee, I mean, all the men on the committee supported us. They were excited about it. And I think a lot of folks just don't know that in Missouri that this is what the laws are.
And I'll say it's an issue that transcends politics. Most 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they're not Republicans or Democrats. It's our responsibility to protect children, to protect girls, and make sure that they have bright futures in our state.
My other question is, if there is a young girl that's watching this tonight on any of these platforms, reading about it, that are in this spot, what do you say to them?
I would like to say for the girls that are like I was at 14, deciding that I needed to talk to my mom and tell her she's got to sign these papers the minute I turned 15. I needed out of a really bad situation. We were in domestic violence that was so awful that I didn't know at days if my mother would live through it, and I needed out. And that is how I made the decision and talked her into signing that paper, because I thought that my life would be better. My mental understanding, my mental capacity at 14, at 15, when I did marry, was not old enough to make that decision, was not old enough to understand what challenges I was putting on myself. So just realize, what I would say is realize that you don't know what you don't know, and your brain is not developed enough to handle this. Move forward, finish your education, and then make that decision as an adult.
Are there any underlying crimes going on with these situations that girls may not be aware of? That are girls not always aware that they may be a victim of something in these situations?
You know, Missouri is one of, and we had the task force in the interim, this past interim, for sex trafficking and child exploitation. Missouri is one of the worst states in the nation for sex trafficking and child exploitation. That's why we put the task force together to look at some of these areas on why. Our marriage laws attributed to some of those things. So yes, and I've also had someone talk to me about the fact that she married because she married her adult boyfriend so that he wouldn't go to jail for statutory rape. So there are many different situations that they absolutely could be in, a criminal situation that they have no idea.
That's an interesting thought. You said earlier that this is just putting a face on rape, what is otherwise rape. And the young lady you just described got married to keep the boyfriend. Do you envision a situation where the rape law gets changed once you get this bill passed to accommodate this in some way, to redefine what rape is? And is that needed? Is that attendant to what you're doing?
I think with our with another bill that I have on that has come out of the committee on sex trafficking and child exploitation, we're tweaking some of those laws now.
So it's in that bill. And for the lady who provided the personal testimony, I just want, are you back in Missouri now? I mean, you
No.
indicated you were all over the map. So
I live in Kentucky.
you're still in Kentucky.
Mhm.
Okay.
Senator Rehder, Senator Arthur, before the most recent law, Missouri had historically been known as one of the worst states for child marriages for 15-year-olds specifically. As recently as, I think it was a year and a half ago, Senator Mike Moon made comments that suggested support for child marriage. Is there a culture of child marriage specifically in Missouri? Can you maybe speak a little bit about that?
I don't know that there's a culture specific to Missouri. I think that you have two different parts here, and Senator Arthur might even have some other thoughts on this. To me, the communities that I grew up in, it was normal. There wasn't much hope for a better tomorrow. We were working every day on, we wanted to get married, move out, do the whole thing, get out of an abusive household. But then on the other side of it, 50 years ago, women didn't really have the opportunity that they have now. Certainly 70 years ago, they absolutely didn't. And so I know that when Senator Moon has spoke before, it's been many, many, many years past the situation that he had talked about. And so I think that we just have women have so much more opportunity now that those type of concerns I feel like are in the past. Those type of cultural norms are way in the past, is my thoughts.
I agree. I think to some extent it has been normalized. And I think sometimes we hear lawmakers invoke religious protections as it relates to child marriage, but nothing prevents a younger person from entering into a spiritual ceremony. What we're talking about is the law. And anyone under the age of 18 is treated as a child in this state. It's been consistent with the way we've approached the juvenile justice system. It's been consistent with the way we've approached contracts. And so this is about the law in Missouri and making sure that the law protects children.